In case you missed it, Alabama got some huge news yesterday.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson. That's me. Alabama internet legend Jimmy Stein. That's him. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. We'll talk about Gametime here in just a little bit. I want to thank you everydayers for being here every day. Thank you newbies for being here today. And thanks to everybody for making this your first listen every single day. You guys are the literal best. So, Jimmy, we talked about it. Had an emergency podcast. Trent Seaborn.
It's funny we call those emergencies. It's an emergency.
It is kind of an emergency.
Well, we're trying to get everybody's attention. I mean, yeah. and since the important stuff, we don't do it because, of some minor thing, right? I mean, getting a quarterback commitment's a big deal.
It is a big deal. And getting this quarterback commitment is a very big deal. And for those who don't know or didn't catch the emergency podcast, first of all, what's wrong with you? Secondly, this guy's going down as an AHSA legend. No matter what he does in college or beyond. I did have somebody yesterday say, well, Keelan Russell won 2 state championships. And he did. And I'm not saying Keelan Russell's not a legend. If you watch this podcast, you know how I feel about Keelan Russell.
Keelan didn't start at Duncanville in the 8th grade.
Yeah, I'm thinking about renaming my daughter Seela to Keelanette. I mean, that's how much I love me some Keelan Russell. So just understand, I love Keelan Russell.
You know who the quarterback at Duncanville was before Keelan Russell?
I do, and you're going to tell me, and I'm going to be mad that I can't remember.
It's a quarterback at Boston College named Grayson James who just beat out Dylan Lonergan to be the starter at Boston College. That was the quarterback at Duncanville prior to Keelan.
Didn't Eli Holstein ultimately get beaten out at Pitt too?
Sure has. Yeah. Both Holstein and Lonergan at the moment have lost their starting jobs at the moment.
Interesting. No, my point is that Keelan Russell, that Trent Seaborn has like this aura about him. And the other thing that I think people are going to really love, and they may not know it yet, because there are some people that listen to the podcast that don't follow recruiting as well as we do. And
they have lives.
They may just not know it. This guy, his dream has been to play for the University of Alabama.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just always wanted to be there. And there is something cool about that. Look, I know Jay Barker has had some moments that probably aren't something you want to brag about over the last several years or whatever, but he seems to be doing well now. When I was in school, Jay Barker was the man. And right. Jay Barker, loved him some University of Alabama. He still loves the University of Alabama. And let me say this, by the way, I ran into Sarah Ashley Barker at the game on Saturday.
Really? Nice.
And spent some time talking to her. And you talk about somebody who's super nice.
WNBA superstar.
Yeah, she's with the Sparks. And she's, she was talking about that. She had some other interesting things to say. I won't go into that. My point is this, that, when I was talking to her, I was like, man, just how cool is it that she got to play for Alabama? I know she went to Georgia first and transferred, but she got to play for Alabama, sort of became an Alabama women's basketball legend. Her dad played for Alabama. He is definitely a legend. Didn't have the greatest stats in the national championship game, but he won a national championship. And now you're talking about Trent Seaborn, this kid who he moves to Alabama. He becomes very good friends with his family with the Tagovailoas, and there's a lot of influence there. This guy is going to be a thing, and whether he makes this incredible impact at the university on the field, I don't know, but I think he will make an impact on the team, because I think he's the kind of guy that loves Alabama for being Alabama. And at a day and age when people view college football as nothing but filled with hired guns, this guy ain't a hired gun. I mean, I'm sure he'll get a good NIL package because you're supposed to, but that wasn't his deciding factor to come to Alabama. He loves this university like you and I do.
No, could have committed to Oregon, could have committed to Miami, could have committed to South Carolina. This is not some in-state guy that Alabama threw a bone to. This is one of the better quarterback prospects in the nation. And frankly, I think he's going to be a climber. I know I say that a lot, but I usually try to justify it as to why. I think the Elite 11 process is sort of built for someone like Trent. I think Trent's going to make, it's just a prediction. I think Trent makes it in that Elite 11 field and does really well because it's kind of built for him. I mean, in terms of all the stuff that goes into the Elite 11 and what they grade you. So I think he's a riser. And of course, it's just way too early. I would remind anyone again who's looking at the rankings of 2027 prospects and looking at the rankings, that is absolutely no different than wanting to know what Mel Kiper and Daniel Jeremiah think of the 2027 NFL draft today, the 27 draft. There's a whole draft before that. They've done very little work. They'll know some things. They'll be more educated than most about the 27 draft. But that's when you're looking at the recruiting rankings, that's how far off it is before those things get very accurate. So Trent is a really good prospect. I'm excited to have him. I've comped him to Stetson Bennett. Understandably get a lot of questions about that and take some heat over that. But again, I think people are focusing on Stetson Bennett's supposed limitations. I don't see limitations with Stetson Bennett. What I see are national championship trophies and the fact that he's playing in the National Football League. I think Trent can be that type of guy. I'm not going to use the game manager term to describe Trent because it's so unfair and kind of dumb. I'd rather describe him as a winner. He's a winner. He's a winning quarterback. He's won a ton of games against elite competition. He's going to be ready quickly. Took Ty 3 or 4 years to get ready. Took Jake Coker 5 years to get ready. That's all typical of this game. Trent Seaborn, as you put this down right now. I doubt we need him as a true freshman, but if we do, he'll be ready. Day one.
You know what it reminds me of when you're talking about the draft. Here's the thing with Trent Seaborn. If you want to, pick apart some things, maybe not the ideal size, or at least not the, kind of size you'd create in a college football video game, 6'8", 225 with a rocket arm. Again, fair enough. But Jimmy and I emphasized this yesterday. He played at a 7A school, at the 7A school. Now, Central Phoenix City has something to say about that. Certainly, Hoover beat them this past weekend on a 55-yard field goal. By the way, I want to offer that guy a scholarship right now. But I looked at his schedule that he's played this year, and they've lost in overtime to Grayson. They lost to Central.
One of the best programs in Georgia, for those that don't know. One of the best programs in Georgia.
They lost to Clay Chalkville, who they lose to every year inexplicably. I don't know why they do. They just do. Probably because Clay Chalkville's really, really good.
Clay Chalkville's really good every year, no doubt.
And they just lost to Hoover on a 55-yard field goal. By the way, they lost to Clay Chalkville on like a Corey Barber catching a pass in the last couple of seconds, and they lost to Grayson in overtime. So his stats this year, 156 of 219, 71% completion rate. Who's that remind you of? Somebody like Ty Simpson? Yeah.
Ty Simpson.
2,109 yards with 21 TDs and 6 INTs, 29 carries for 53 yards and 3 touchdowns. But my point was now we've seen him since he's been in the 8th grade. So it's gone from, oh my God, this guy's going to be a phenom, to, oh, we can now clearly see any flaws he has. That's how it happens in the NFL draft, right? I can't even remember the kid's name. That's how, Anthony Richardson from Florida. Remember, like, he's barely played. He's played some quarterback, but we're just so enamored with what we think he can do that we're going to pick him 2nd or 3rd in the draft when there are a lot of other dudes that are proven, and we're not going to take them because we're so scared of missing out what somebody could be. And the Colts, now it's worked out for the Colts because somehow Daniel Jones has resurrected his career and they're 6-1 right now. But they blew a draft pick on Anthony Richardson. They just blew it.
Bill Parcells said recently. Bill Parcells had a famous thing, Luke, on this very subject where he said, Bill Parcells knows the league as well as anybody. He said, teams are crazy for ever drafting a quarterback who hadn't started 25 games.
That's
Like,
fair.
if he hadn't started 25 games, don't draft him because you don't know what he is.
Yeah.
Trent Seaborn, by the time he gets to Alabama, he will have started, and I could be off a couple. I'm going to go with this. I think he started somewhere around 512 games.
Plus or minus.
Somewhere around 500.
With a margin of error of 450.
And again, one last thing about his size. I mean, and I've talked about his size. I'm comparing him to Stetson Bennett, who's listed on the Rams roster, I think at 5'11", 196. Trent Seaborn was small in the 8th or 9th grade, not the biggest guy. Imagine that. He wasn't big enough to be an SEC quarterback when he was in the 8th grade. I know that's crazy, right? Well, Trent's bigger now. Trent's almost as big as Ty Simpson, almost. And I say that in the sense I saw a picture of them side by side, and it's kind of hard to tell the difference. Trent's almost as tall as Kalen DeBoer, who's not a short guy at all. So I just say that people make too much of that. And in my Stetson Bennett comp, I think it puts out the idea that I'm saying Trent's 5'11". I'm not saying that. I'm saying he's just not the biggest guy in the world. And he's kind of a wiry built, he's not ripped up. Ty's a pretty solidly built guy. And Trent may end up being exactly as big as Ty after he gets in Alabama's weight room. So I don't make too much of his size. And I watched his midseason highlight tape yesterday, and he's even better than he was. And he's still a junior. He's got a whole nother year to get bigger, stronger.
Well, by the way, who did look like a grown man in 8th grade? Dylan Moses. And this is not me picking on Dylan Moses. What I'm saying is Dylan Moses in 8th grade was about the same kind of kid as he was in 12th grade. And then, yes, he put on some weight and he went through some injuries or whatever. But I'm saying, like, just because somebody looks like a grown man in 8th grade, and we all love Dylan Moses, and he is a Bama, and we love him, okay? But the fact of the matter is, when you saw him in 8th grade, you thought this is a no doubt number 1 NFL draft pick. Forget about it. He could go in the draft right now. And it didn't materialize. So talking about Trent Seaborn, yeah, he looked like an 8th grader in 8th grade, but he's growing. I mean, I think there's some positivity to that versus hitting your ceiling a little bit early. You know what I mean?
Right. That's exactly right. Kids mature at a different pace.
Monarch. Let's be honest, most of us can't even name all our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. It's helped me organize my accounts, track my spending, and get a better handle on my investments without having to touch a spreadsheet like a sucker. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, LOCKEDONCollege at Monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's Monarch.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Now there's FanDuel. FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet. Put down $5. If it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Look, it makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action, and FanDuel lets that happen for you. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started with fun with FanDuel. Okay, so by the way, I was going to throw something in there about Elijah Haven, but it doesn't mean we're going to quit recruiting Elijah Haven. For anybody worried about that, quit worrying about it. Also, somebody asked about Gunnar Rivers. In fact, somebody literally just texted me right now, and it came up on my computer. Are you upset we took Seaborn over Rivers? Number one, I don't know that we could. I don't know that was an option. I don't know that Rivers was like, I'm ready to commit to Alabama. We're like, nope, we want Seaborn. I don't know if that's an option. No. And number two, I'm not upset at all. I think both these guys are really good, and Gunnar Rivers may turn out to be the man. Okay, he may. I'm happy with either, but I have a personal feeling about Trent Seaborn more so than Rivers, because I know Trent Seaborn wants to be at Alabama. I know he wants to 100%. And I've watched him kick butt for several years now, and he will continue to kick butt. He's got one more game against Prattville this weekend. and then they have an off week, and then they're going to start into the playoffs. And my bet is Thompson is back in Mobile in the state championship game. That's my bet. And so, but St. Michael with Gunnar Rivers, I don't know that they're going to make the state championship game. They might. They're a good team. They beat Jackson. Yeah. So
I know a lot about Gunnar. I'm familiar with him. He lives literally down the street from where I'm recording this. He is great. I'm a huge Gunnar fan. I think Gunnar over the course of the next year is going to make a run at Elijah Haven and be considered the number one quarterback in his class nationally. Whoa. I really think that. Gunnar gets better and better all the time. Just a tremendous talent. But the thing is, first of all, Trent had an Alabama offer and Gunnar does not. That's one big thing. And Trent wanted to commit. And like Luke said, true, Gunnar Rivers was not calling to commit to Alabama this week like Trent was. And here's the thing about those that say, gosh, you went ahead and took Trent and didn't, take a bigger swing at Gunnar Rivers. And again, I'm saying this as a huge fan of Gunnar's. The problem is Trent wants to be at Alabama. We all know this. Gunnar is going to be recruited from one coast to another. Dad didn't go to Alabama. Kid's not being trained by Tua's dad. You could recruit Gunnar hard for a full year with a giant NIL package and rev share package, and at the end he chooses Texas or Notre Dame. I'll be surprised. I know he's visiting there.
I know,
I'll be surprised. But yeah, that's where Dad went.
Yeah.
Yep. So he doesn't have the connections to the University of Alabama. So you can recruit him really, really hard and be your number one priority. And then he goes to Texas or he goes to Notre Dame. And my guess today as we're sitting here is I think he's going to be at Texas or Notre Dame. And if I'm wrong, Georgia or Ohio State. I think that's where he's going to end up. And he could have ended up there even with Alabama making him priority number one. Then you've lost them all. Then you don't have Gunnar, you don't have Trent, you don't have Elijah Haven. I think what Alabama's doing is very smart. Take Trent Seaborn, continue to recruit Elijah Haven. They're continuing to recruit Gunnar Rivers. That's not over. That's not over either. But I think they would take a second quarterback with Trent as long as it's the right guy. Elijah Haven would be that right guy. I personally think, this is Jimmy opinion, maybe not Alabama, Jimmy opinion, I think Gunnar Rivers is going to be that guy over the course of the next year too. But we'll see. But I'm not upset about it. And I'm as big of a Gunnar fan as anybody out there because I didn't want to see Alabama. It's like, let's use a Seinfeld thing. It's like Marissa Tomei wants to go out with you, but you're like, you know what? I like Jennifer Aniston. So you spend all your time just doing the Jennifer Aniston chase thing. Ends up, she prefers, Brad Pitt to a guy doing a podcast in his mom's basement. Ends up, and then you lose your shot at Marissa Tomei. That's kind of how I feel about recruiting in general, frankly. I mean, I'm all for chasing the big dogs, but you better land one. You better land one if you do. You don't want to, then you don't want to end up with your third, fifth, or ninth choice.
Well, and then you miss out on Aston, you miss out on Marissa Tomei, and you wind up with Susan, who you convert to lesbianism.
Until you just tell her to lick a few wedding envelopes and see what happens.
Yeah, that is true. That is such a plot hole in Seinfeld to me. Like, he said he brings them out of, Kramer brought a nun out of celibacy, and then George made the Susan turn
the other side
lesbian, and then somehow they end up just married, and nobody ever is like, hey, what about that period of time where you were just?
Or what about,
it's just little.
What about the period of time when they first met, when Susan was an executive at NBC, and was the smartest person in the room, and like 20 times above George's head, and over time as the show progressed, she became more and more like a cartoon, like George. I'm like, what happened to the Susan we met in the offices at the NBC president?
It is just there were some plot holes, but I'm willing to overlook them. So going back to look, I'd be fine if Gunnar Rivers and Trent Seaborn were in this class. I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't see that happening.
No.
But one other recruiting note that we should say, just because it happened, I mean, I don't think it's a big deal, but Alabama lost a commitment yesterday in Alexander Ward. And, it's funny because after Trent committed, I started looking up the 27 rankings and stuff in Alabama and moved up to 2, I think. And I was like, yeah, I'd forgotten about Alexander Ward. And then 5 minutes later, he's tweeted he decommits from Alabama. I mean, I think
this is why we can't make too big a deal over 27 just yet.
You can't.
Trent, you can, because he's a gulp. He's in.
Yeah,
he's in.
But
that's done. That's a deal there.
Alexander Ward committed like last March or something. I mean, some crazy number ago, and he just, look, that was destined not to work. He hadn't even been to Alabama in God knows how long.
He ain't even the first decommitment from that 27 class. Remember the Moody linebacker?
Yeah, Barack Willis.
Yeah. He ain't in the class anymore either, and I don't think he's getting back in. And I don't think Alexander Ward's getting back in.
No, and again, fine. So that does leave us with Javarius Chicken Guerra from Mobile, who I love.
He's really good.
He's a dude. Jatori Williams from Central Phoenix City. Again, love him. Love the programs he's with. And Nate Johnson, who only a 3-star, but is with a bullet because he's shooting
climbing big. Yeah, he could end up being national top 100. I mean, it's too early to know or really say that emphatically, but yeah, he could end up being a really big deal, Nate Johnson.
Glad to have Game Time back here, reading some Game Time live reads. Y'all know that's my fave. Game Time, I've used it a gazillion times. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. There's nothing like it Saturday night, I can promise you that. But let's be real, actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout, all that crap. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up Gametime, and in just a few taps, I saw some amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games as low as 25 smacks. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Jimmy Stein guarantee. So South Carolina this weekend, and I've seen the spread fluctuating between 11.5, 13.5. This feels kind of like a trap game because South Carolina is very talented. They're probably one of the more disappointing teams in college football this year. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked that they're struggling. I'm not shocked based on their lineup and based on that. I'm not shocked. But I certainly expected a better team than this. Doesn't mean that they all of a sudden won't turn it around. Remember, they were a turnaround team a year ago. I think they started out of the gate pretty bad, lost to Alabama, and then didn't lose again, in the regular season all the way until they finally lost in the bowl, missed out on making the playoff by just maybe a game. So, really good quarterback. I think we all know Lenore Sellers. He's a guy capable of beating you by himself. I mean, that's how good he is. They have a couple of skill guys that are interesting. Nick Harbor, the big wide receiver, is a matchup nightmare. They got another wide receiver that, gosh, I don't know why at this exact moment. I can't think of his name, but they do have a very productive receiver that catches more balls for more yards than even Nick Harbor. They got the Utah State transfer running back Faison. He hasn't been that great. Now, funny in Alabama, I think he's got the exact same yard per carry number as Jam Miller's got. But, I think we all recognize Alabama's issues in the run game. South Carolina running it no better. They're got 4.4 yards a carry, I think, is their leading rusher. Their offensive line is a complete mess. I know Alabama fans are like, well, I'm not crazy about our offensive line. Wait till you see this one. Okay, this is
we gave up no sacks to Tennessee. I mean, that should be noted.
Exactly. This is what a struggling offensive line looks like in Columbia. Not what you think Alabama struggle. This is a real struggle on the offensive line at South Carolina. And defensively, they're better than they are on offense, I think. But they're still not great. They're just okay. So this is a game Alabama should win, I think, by more than 2 touchdowns. But like Luke said, classic trap game. You're coming off 4 ranked opponents. The kids are dying to get what a lot of fans are like, hey, LSU's next. They're looking forward to that. You know what they're looking forward to more than LSU? The off week. That's what they're looking forward to. The off week, a couple of days off so they can, actually talk to their family and girlfriends again. They're looking forward to that off week. So you're coming off 4 weeks of ranked opponents. Now you're playing a team everyone says you should drill. And the next 2 weeks, you got an off week, which I've been looking forward to. And then LSU, which is a much bigger game at home. This is a classic trap game. And it's exactly the type game Alabama lost last year 3 times. I'm not going to compare Tennessee to it because Tennessee was a freaking playoff team last year. Tennessee went to the playoff. I'm not going to compare that to the Vanderbilt 6-6 team that we lost to, the 6-6 Oklahoma team we lost to, or even the 7-5 Michigan team they lost to. I mean, Tennessee was 10-2. And in the playoffs. But they did lose 3 times to 500 football teams, basically, a year ago. And I do think South Carolina is likely to finish somewhere in that 500 range. So there's every reason in the world to have some anxiety over this because, again, it looks like the games you lost last year. But this is why they won't lose. Last year, one unit or the other was an epic fail in those 4 losses. The offense was just an epic fail against Michigan, against Oklahoma, and even against Tennessee. The defense was an epic fail against Vanderbilt and Nashville. I just don't see the offense or the defense being a fail to that point against South Carolina. I think Alabama's just too good on offense and too good on defense to have that sort of epic fail game it would take one unit or the other to have to lose this game in Columbia. So I don't see it happening. Now, it might be ugly. It might not look good. It might only be a 7-point win. But if you're an Alabama fan, you know what you do? You take it, you say thank you, and you get the heck out of town. You go back home to Tuscaloosa and rest.
Because it doesn't – all the style point stuff doesn't matter anymore given the setup. So, and I'm going to say it again. If Alabama beats South Carolina, and I think they will, and if they beat LSU, and I think they will, and I think LSU could lose this weekend, which will really make things – interesting for Brian Kelly. And then Alabama beats Oklahoma, assuming they don't crap the bed against Eastern Illinois. They're in the playoffs regardless of what happens in the Iron Bowl. Now, I want to beat Auburn every time, no matter what. But I'm just saying, I think that's your motivation is like, look, just take care. Go. We're supposed to beat this crowd. Let's go do it. They fired their offensive line coach. They got Mike Shula as their offensive coach. They only scored 7 points last weekend against Oklahoma. Oklahoma's got a great defense, but they only scored 7 points. They're sleepwalking through things right now. Now, they may put all their eggs in the, hey, this is our Super Bowl basket. They might do that. And that stadium is no joke. I've been to it. It gets loud. It gets crazy. And even when they aren't good, it'll do that. But I was also there in 2019 when we just carved them up pretty good. And apparently they had a better team in 2019 they do now. I can't believe I'm saying that because it didn't feel like they should have, but apparently they did because this team seems to be coming apart at the seams. Maybe we'll have Chris Marler on later with Locked On Gamecocks, and we can talk to him about this. Y'all know Chris Marler, I'm sure. But, yeah, that's going to be a shame. A couple of shout-outs. Yanzi Pierre and Xavier Brown shared Defensive Player of the Week. Again, I'm going to say –
Never seen that happen before. I don't think I've ever seen it happen before. That two key players.
I hate anything player of the week. Is such a cop out. Pick one. Now I would have picked Yanzi Pierre.
I would have too.
Caused a safety, 2 other sacks, big tackles, all over the place, just a menace. But I get Xavier Brown because he had the most impactful play of the weekend, and that's gonna end up being one of the more iconic plays of the college football season.
You think years from now, Luke, like 10 years from now, we'll look back and we'll call that the Xavier Brown game?
Ooh, that's a good call. I bet you, isn't that funny? Like we'll call it the Xavier Brown game.
I would have put Yanzi. I agree with you that Yanzi should have been the SEC Defensive Player of the Week and not Xavier. But 10 years from now, we're going to call that the Xavier Brown game.
That's so true. We will do that. And Yanzi Pierre's like, well, I'm just sitting over here like everybody else, kicking butt.
Sitting over here with my trophy.
Yeah, exactly. And then I do want to give
I think
another
they get a
shout out
plaque.
to.
I think they get a plaque. I think they get a plaque from the SEC office. I think they do.
Do you think it's like when Dwight Schrute got 2 plaques? He was salesman of the year 2 years in a row, and they quit giving out raises, so he just got 2 plaques for that year. Anyway, real quick,
I've never eaten a beet. Speaking of Dwight Schrute,
let me tell you something.
have you eaten a beet?
Beets are underrated. I
They're
thought I
good?
was going to hate beets. I kind of like them.
What does
They
it
got a
taste
sort of a potato-ish kind of.
Potato-ish.
Yeah, like they're good. Now they'll stain everything they touch, but I like a beet. I like a good beet. Anyway, insert your own jokes there. Anyway, so
Community.
I wanted to give a shout out to some pros. Devonta Smith had a career game. Longest touchdown of his career, best game of his career, most yards. Of course, Jalen Hurts ended up with over 300 yards, had several touchdowns. Then Jahmyr Gibbs last night was disgustingly good. I can't believe they didn't let him have a few more yards to try and increase his yardage. Number one, because he's on my fantasy team, and if he had gotten like another 1.5 points, I win both games. But anyway, it doesn't matter. He was awesome. Then Will Anderson last night, sack, caused fumble, gets the fumble, scores a touchdown. It was very reminiscent of David Pollock's strip of a South Carolina player where he just gets the ball in the end zone and scores a touchdown. Pretty incredible. So, of course, some other Bammers had big games too, but those 3 really, really stood out. And unfortunately, we brought up Tua Tagovailoa earlier. He was benched. It ain't looking good over there.
He is going to start next week, though, per Mike McDaniel. He is going to start next week. But, boy, the Dolphins, I believe, are going to have a very high pick in the next draft. They're going to hit a major reset button. That feels like a tear-down rebuild to me.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And it may start with Tua and the coach, but I hate it because I love it.
It's a real shame. Tua's NFL career ain't over. I don't know that he'll be starting somewhere in the NFL in 2026, but he'll be playing somewhere.
Yep. All right, that's going to do it for today's pod. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.